To the East Bank and Garyville. This was a timber town. Trains and loggers pulled great cypress knees from the swamps between Lakes Marpaw and Pontchartrain. The Stebbins Lumber Company built houses for its workers. It had one set of plans. No matter the passage of time or the remodeling, you can always spot the Stebbins houses by their quaint angle and scale in Garyville. Along the river road in Reserve, we were curious what was going on under a big tarp. They're cleaning up an old locomotive. This was one of the originals used to haul sugar cane by the Godchaux Henderson Refinery, but there's only a pile of rubble where Godchaux once stood. It had become a liability on a new industrial park for one of the world's largest ports. Seeing the last smokestack of the sugar refinery that once employed half the town at cutting season brings a lump to the throats of the men who worked it. You'll usually find some Godchaux sugar veterans sitting outside the American Legion Hall.
The refinery started in 1896. It was only a sugar house, a very small sugar house, and every year they just kept adding and adding till they got to where they were. At the end, we were making over 4 million pounds of sugar.
Nearly every day, someone recalls a story from the factory.
I believe they had a good day's work for a good pay.
I worked during the grinding about 47, 48, 62 cents an hour. That was pretty good money, I guess.
In the field, they would pick the cane up, put it on little cane cars, which they call narrow gauge cane cars, or they would haul by mules, wagons with mules. They would chop the cane up so it'd make it smaller when it would get to the mill, and they would go through a series of rollers that would grind, and squeeze, gradually squeeze all the juice out of the cane.
And then they would spin it into sugar too?
No, that went through a different process. It would have to be boiled in about 4 different stages before it came to, a process of getting white sugar out of it.
This man once sold lunches to workers 7 days a week delivered on his bike. A labor strike provided small-town drama 45 years ago.
Some Yankees came down and shot him some BS, and they believed it. But what it was all about...
You mean the union?
Yeah, but the company offered them 7.5 cents. But they never did tell the membership that they offered them 7.5 cents. They kept telling them they didn't want to even give them a nickel until they turned over the 2 bosses right there by my house over there on that cross street. And they took them to court. That's when they found out they were sold down the river. That's the whole story. Now you can believe what I'm telling you.
When Dudley Beadle was a boy, he rode his bicycle through the sugar refinery. It was such an important landmark to him, he made this model. He enjoys showing it to older workers and watching the memories come rushing back. How long did you work there, Mr. Garrett?
Well, I started when I was 16.
Huh.
And I worked till I was 60. Till the place closed. Yeah.
They see it and then they start reminiscing. That's what you just saw here a few minutes ago. Yeah. They talk about this and that going on now. It seems like it picks up their morale, They get quite an enjoyment out of it. They talk about it often. And it stirs up a conversation with them.
Mr. Calhoun, do you think that the town was really sad when the...
Oh, sure. It was worse than that, then.
There was a lot of people were sad, I guess.
Mm-hmm. They talk about the steel mills in, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, or anything like that, all closing down in the 70s and 80s, but we had a real story just like that right here, didn't we?
Right here, right. There's at least 50% of the workers here at that time was 50 years or older, and it was very hard on them because, at 50 years old. And then in the mid-80s, there's very few plants were hiring anybody because they was cutting back. And we just had to scrap here and there until we got the retirement age of security.
Funny the stories you can dig out of an old pile of rubble. Everyone in Reserve has some connection to these ruins.
62 cents an hour. That was pretty good money, I guess.
He don't plant potatoes
After all of us and all of our efforts, we've come to know what will remain.